Welcome back to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ollie Hayes, and today I'm bringing you a new series called the Everton Rant. Now, let me get into a little bit of an explanation what the Everton Rant will include. It's basically a series where we get the opinions of the fan base and on the most hot topics of the club at the moment. We have a little talk about we unpack them and maybe see both sides of the argument, but why don't we start with probably the most hot topic at the moment in terms of Everton? And we'll start with the question that should Everton sack the manager, Sean Dyche? Now, I think this is probably one of the most divisive questions at the moment. Obviously, after that Bournemouth game, a lot of fans were, that were sat on the fence with Sean Dyche, maybe were tipped towards the opinion of sacking him. So why don't we get straight into it, and I'll unpack both sides of the argument and maybe give my final verdict on it. But let's start with the argument that Sean Dyche does have a lot of credit in the bank from the last couple of seasons, especially that first season where, under Frank Lampard, we looked down and out. And a lot of fans had, different opinions on Frank Lampard, his style of football, would it have kept us up? That's all hindsight, that's all, speculation. But when Sean Dyche came in, we did look down and out in that January window. And, after that West Ham game away from home, I think that the 2-0 defeat for Frank Lampard's Everton, we looked completely down and out. We looked pretty much relegated at that point. And that's kind of mad to say in January that we looked down and out and relegated, but it's true. We did look like a really really broken side. And when Sean Dyche came in, it was kind of alongside that interview with Farhad Moshiri where he was promising a striker to the fan base, and deadline day came around and we didn't sign a striker. And you're looking at that task for Sean Dyche there between then and the end of the season as a real difficult task. And the way he turned it around in that first game against Arsenal, with the James Tarkowski header, which put us 1-0 up, and obviously we went on to win that game 1-0 against a team that were fighting for the title at the time. I think that showed that Dyche was ready to muck in and get stuck in. And the football wasn't really stereotypical of Dyche in that first game. I remember thinking back that if a Sean Dyche team plays like that, I've got no complaints. I'll be happy to see that. We were right onto Arsenal, high pressing, high pressure, loads of attacking chance creation, and it didn't look like a Sean Dyche team. It certainly didn't look like a Sean Dyche Burnley team, that's for sure. But you know, I do worry about the style of football for me with Sean Dyche. Obviously, that first season and then the second season keeping us up, with games to spare. I think that definitely shows that he does have credit in the bank amongst the fan base. But that being said, the style of football for me has gone on a downward trajectory since the start, and it's kind of regressed into back in the day of Sean Dyche with that long ball, that dogged football where it's very hard to watch. You look at Amadou Onana, he was a player that we maybe should have been utilising. He's absolutely tearing it up at Aston Villa at the moment. And, he kind of had to watch the ball fly over his head in a Sean Dyche team, which, if that's how he wants to play football, that's fine. It did get us results last season. So that's why I bring the argument about having credit in the bank. I think that's definitely a strong argument for fans that are still advocating that Sean Dyche should keep his job. But I do think it is wearing a little bit thin, that argument now. And, we are getting to a point where there is only so much credit that Sean Dyche can have, and only so much credit that he can use. But for me personally, I think my main argument would be that Dyche's ceiling was last season. Obviously, with the points deduction, it looked a little bit worse. We were lower down the league, but his ceiling last season, we reached mid-table. I don't think there is a Sean Dyche team that can go for higher than mid-table. Obviously, he had that one kind of freak season with Burnley where he managed to get them into Europe, which there was a very low points total to get them into Europe. But my main argument is really that I feel like that last season we maybe did reach the ceiling of Sean Dyche, and to progress as a club and to progress as a team going into a new stadium. Obviously, we have all the ownership issues and stuff like that off the pitch, but to progress as a team going forward, I do feel like we need a change of manager. And the football on show in the first three games of this season, it almost feels like he's admitting that the squad should be in a relegation battle, which for me, I think there's players with quality in that squad that we should be definitely above a relegation battle. You look at Iliman Ndiaye, he had a fantastic game against Bournemouth. Dominic Calvert-Lewin on his day, obviously he had a great game on Saturday against Bournemouth, showed that he is a very decent striker, and if used correctly, is a very good striker. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin has maybe divided opinion even more, and that might be a future topic that we talk about. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin showed on Saturday that he is a good striker, and he shouldn't be in a relegation battle. That player, he 100% shouldn't be in a relegation battle. But I'd bring it back to that argument that I do think Dyche's ceiling maybe has been reached, especially last season. Obviously, he did so well to keep us up with the points deduction. But that being said, the points tally that we would have got. Can he go any higher than that? I'm not so sure, and that's where you maybe have to look at a managerial change to progress. But no, I don't want to keep bashing him. There is some positives. Obviously, he likes to get players very match fit before he plays them, and that, as I said before, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he is a player that really struggled for match fitness in recent years, especially under the likes of Frank Lampard, Rafa Benitez, and co. He has really struggled for fitness. So when Dyche came in, and a manager that likes to have players very fit and match ready before they're actually thrown in, I think that maybe suited a player like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who did have so many issues with injury. So I think that's definitely a positive for Dyche. He does look to have players ready to be match fit. And you look at players like Jess Binom. He didn't play a lot of minutes last season for Napoli, and a player that is coming into a Premier League team where he's going to have to adapt. He's going to have to get used to the pace of the Premier League. Is Dyche probably the best man to do it in terms of getting him up to speed? Yes, I think that is a massive positive of Dyche, and that can definitely be utilised. But he is a flair player. He is a very pacey, quick winger. So is Sean Dyche the best manager tactically to get the best out of Jesper Lindstrom? I'm not so sure. But for me, a downside of Dyche, and we 100% saw it against Bournemouth, was his in-game management. I think at 2-0 in that game, we're absolutely cruising. And Dyche just failed to make changes and failed to make the necessary changes to see out the game. And that's as simple as. And, we can talk about stats, expected points, expected goals. We can talk about all of it. But unfortunately, the one stat that mattered was Bournemouth coming away with the 3 points. And to avoid that, Sean Dyche could have made the adequate changes to do that. And he didn't, unfortunately. And I think we're seeing it time and time again that it is costing us games and it's costing us points. And for me, the players didn't look fit. They looked really tired. They looked really leggy. And that's really uncharacteristic of a Sean Dyche team. And there's some things that he says as well post match. And I think that riles up the fan base, me included. I'd maybe fall into the trap of, taking his comments the wrong way and maybe looking at his comments about, fans leaving early. Maybe I look at those comments the wrong way. I'm not so sure. But I think those comments are best not said because in a situation like that where a fan base, we are on the edge. We're very worried about our ownership situation, our status in the Premier League. A fan base that are very easily riled. Should he try and maybe alter his comments to try and get the fan base on side? I'm not so sure. Obviously, we like straight talking managers, but when they're talking down on us, that maybe we don't like that so much. I'm not so sure. But for me, it feels like he's very happy to see out his contract, and he doesn't really, care who he upsets along the way. And rather than trying to coach the players, he's just trying to get through this last year and maybe just try and get us to the new stadium and have a clean break there. But for me, it does feel like a hypothetical situation. Sacking Sean Dyche at the moment, obviously, we know the lack of ownership and the lack of hierarchy at Everton. There isn't really a person that can make the decision to sack Sean Dyche. But that being said, we do just look devoid of any plan B going forward, don't we? And a manager that prides himself also on being defensively solid, we look far from it. We really do look, very shaky in terms of defence. And that will be helped with Jarrad Branthwaite coming back. That is 100% certain. So we saw it last season. We didn't really get going until September. We had that point late on at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United, and then that was the first start for Jarrad Branthwaite in that game. So it kind of showed a new era. But a player like Jake O'Brien has been sat on the bench for the first 3 games of the season. And it feels to me like Dyche was using his favourites, especially in Michael Keane. So that's one I'd maybe like to see Dyche alter and is maybe throw Jarrad Branthwaite and Jake O'Brien back in. Obviously, James Tarkowski hasn't been the best for these first 3 games. He looks a lot more comfortable with Jarrad Branthwaite next to him rather than Michael Keane. But for me, it feels like he's playing his favourites, and it does worry to me that now it is Dyche beyond gone, as he maybe lost the majority of the fan base, and there isn't many people on his side anymore. I'm more swaying towards sacking him and asking for a fresh start. Obviously, there's going to be people that will have vastly different opinions, and that's absolutely fine. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on that, because it's an open space. This is the whole point of this Everton rant. It creates an open space and it creates debate in the comments. And obviously, there will be a lot of different opinions on Sean Dyche at the moment. And for me, I do think the best thing for the club and the best thing for the squad at the moment would be to sack him and have a fresh start. But obviously, it's quite difficult to say that because it will be all hypothetical. Obviously, there's not really a hierarchy to do that. There's not really a hierarchy to make decisions. So for me, there has been replacements already been touted. I think Football Insider reported that David Moyes was a potential candidate to replace Sean Dyche at Everton and look to get us to the new stadium. 11 years after leaving the club, and that for me would be an interesting one. Would it steady the ship? Yes, 100%. To getting us to the new stadium, it would 100% steady the ship. I think his man management is very good, David Moyes. He knows how to get the best out of a player, and he knows how to get the best personal relationship with a player. So I think it might bring that feel good factor back to the squad potentially. It might be an interesting one. But for me personally, and I want to know your thoughts in the comments as well, Blues, about potential replacements for Sean Dyche. Obviously, I keep saying this is all hypothetical. It might never happen, and we could see Dyche out to the end of his contract and then have to make that decision then. But for me, a very interesting replacement for Sean Dyche would be Carlos Corberán. I think he is a very good manager at West Brom. I think he's shown signs that he has the tactical nous to win games. I think West Brom are a team that are a sleeping giant. They've not got a lot of money to spend, West Brom, but with the squad that they've got, Corberán is getting a lot out of that squad. So if he was to bring Tom Fellows with him as well, I think that would be a nice winger to have on the wing as well. But yeah, for me, Corberán would be a very good replacement for Sean Dyche. And I know a lot of fans might agree with me in that sense. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, Blues. Obviously, this is the new series called the Everton Rant, so it creates debate. And obviously, it's quite a hot topic at the moment with Sean Dyche. Should we sack him? Should we keep him? I think, my final verdict is maybe swaying towards the side of sacking him and maybe asking for a fresh start, because I think there's so much, ability and talent in this squad that we can get out of it. I just don't think Dyche is utilising it, sufficiently at the moment. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Should we sack Sean Dyche? Obviously, it's probably a difficult situation, and will spark a very good debate in the comments. But let me know your thoughts, Blues. But that is all from me today for the Everton rant about Sean Dyche. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon.